the second week of Watch Along with Ray. It's where I watched the episode of Interview with the Vampire from this week, and then I talk about it, and then you guys are so excited to hear me talk about it. Sure. Again, I'm weanless, and so it's just me. So you just sorry, I'm not that exciting. But I hope to keep this a little shorter than last week's, but I wanted to like set up what was happening so that way I didn't have to explain who Louis was or who Lestat were. We could just get into it. And we're gonna get into it. Disclaimer, if you are you squeamish with animal deaths, this obviously is a puppet or an animatronic, but it is rough. There is a little, like, they call it a sand fox, I believe, that Louis eats. Like, he eats it live. So if I would say I can touch back and put it in the comments as to what time code that is, but you'll know because there'll be something that comes out under a metal like a metal serving plate, and it's moving, so you can kind of figure out, then maybe just fast forward a little bit through it. It's not awful. Me being the person who like literally has doesthedogdie.com bookmarked on her phone, I think anybody who is an animal person who loves horror movies has to have. I was even like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I was just kind of like, no, but it definitely looks like a robot. It does not look like a real animal, but the screams are rough. So the episode in question is called After the Phantoms of Your Former Self. And I have to say, this one is a little bit more comedic than last, obviously. But there's not a ton that happens in this episode, but it does have a little bit more of a light tone at some points. I think that's the overall for this series is, I've noticed, it is very black comedy mixed with like pretty light, horrific things. So I mean, and you're laughing about, like, there's a big part in this one, and I'm not going to ruin it. But Daniel, the writer, keeps saying, "Did you eat the baby? Did you eat the baby?" And you're laughing because Louis won't answer if he ate the baby or not. But I mean, that's something that usually would be in a normal movie. Did you eat the baby? That's not an accent I should continue doing. So, to get into it, I found out where we're at, guys. We're in Dubai. So, yay. You know what would be really helpful, guys? Makers of this show, tell me where the fuck I am, because I don't know where I'm at half the time. In life. So we do get a couple things that are interesting. So a lot of this is at the dinner table. This is like a dinner table Das Boot sort of or is that the one I'm thinking of? Or no, My Dinner with Andre. My Dinner with Andre style. Like, it's just the two of them at the dinner table, Daniel and I'm gonna call him Danielle. Daniel and make it in French, and Louis having dinner, and he has the servants give Daniel this like 7-course meal, and Daniel's like, what the fuck? He even says, like, are you fattening me up to, like, for the, like, a cow to the slaughter sort of thing? So it's we obviously we're flashing back to at this point we've had a little bit of we start right off the tail end of last episode. So Louis is getting used to being a vampire. Like, I mean, we're burying the priests. Priesticide, so he's called priesticide. And we start to get this worst thing I thought was interesting is, so Louis has all these in the present, has all these like servants, and Danielle tries to like make like small talk with them, and the one, I can't think of his name right now, and Kahil, I think, or Kahit, I think it might be. He's like, he, did he make you, are you subservient to him, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, is he your master? Did he make you? And he said, I serve a god. We don't know what god. We just know I serve a god, which I thought was very interesting because we don't get into that at all. So maybe we will at some point. Um, he also makes no reference to the farm. He says that this is like, so Louis joins Daniel. I keep wanting to say Daniel on like the 7th course of the meal. So he brings in a bag of, like, he's got this bag. They bring him a bag of blood, and he's like, it's from the farm. So I'm assuming at some point we're going to learn about the farm, but I'm imagining like all kinds of things in my head, like just humans strapped up like I Frankenstein, like batteries, or almost like the Matrix. Like I can only imagine. Oh God, do you remember I Frankenstein? Oh my God, they were supposed to be all these bodies attached to this, like they were all suspended, and they were supposed to be like soul, like all these souls from hell were supposed to, I think we're supposed to go into them. I don't know, whatever. I Frankenstein. Watch it. It's a mess. It's great. A rat comes back to life. It's amazing. So getting back to the past, Louis is, we get vampire vision. We get to see how Louis sees now. It's like, it's fractured almost. It's prismatic, and he's thirsty. Obviously, he's hungry, and as Lestat is burying the priest, he's trying to lick the blood off the ground. I was like, oh honey, no. Even I was like, not the vampire going, no. And Lestat goes, no, we live off the blood of the living. Lap up the blood of the deceased, and it'll suck you right down into death. I have, like, of anything, this was a very quotable episode. There were so many quotes in here, so good. So then they decide, well, like Louis needs to eat because he needs to build up his strength. So they go hunting, and Louis just immediately wants to go for this fucking hot piece of ass, like sailor. He's like, no. He's like the hottest piece of ass here. People will recognize if he's gone. You cannot has cheeseburger. You cannot has this guy. Okay, you can has this creepy little weird guy at the bar. You can have him because he's easy prey, but you can't have that one. And the week he was like looking back, like, I wants, and Lestat keeps smacking him like, you can't. And it's really funny. And he says to Louis, hunting is an art. You have the power to subdue anyone you want, but sometimes restraint is the most powerful weapon. And that, I think, is big undertone of this episode, is restraint. Everything is restraint. Like, we see, this is the episode where we see Louis start to obviously become a vampire, right? But like really become controlled, because there's some things he goes through that you're like, oh fuck, like this is, if he can overcome this, then he can move forward with becoming a full-fledged controlled vampire. So we do get the first instance where Louis realizes why they can't go out in the sunlight anymore. And Lestat's such a dick. He lets him do it too. He's like, don't. It's like, he can really walk over. He's like, no, don't. Oh, don't. And it's kind of the same thing, like, oh, don't run. And he gets out and he's like, motherfucker, like he's like on fire. And Lestat can hear him banging on the fence to get back in because he's like burning. So Lestat is a legit coffin in this one, guys. And there's a part coming up that I recorded and sent to my friends because it's so fucking funny. I don't even know. I don't think I'm gonna mention it because it's so funny. I want you guys to experience it on your own. Louis is surmising the night up to, like, it's his first night as a vampire, and so he's kind of like summing up what happened, and to Daniel, because again we flash forward back, he says, he rushed me headlong through the encounter as if it were something to put behind us. Death, birth, coming out, homicide. Too many firsts in one night. And he and Daniel get into a kind of tale about like what, because he's just coming out, and it's a very much, this is where you get the social commentary about Louis being Black in New Orleans at this time, also being gay at this time. And Daniel has a really good, he's coming from a really good place. Like his argument is coming from a very sound place, a place that at this point in time we can look back and have this conversation. At the time, no, we would not be having. They are not equals, he and Lestat. But the conversation that Danielle, almost did it again. Daniel says, I'm gonna call him Dan. Dan says is like, coming out as a vampire, coming out as gay, coming out as an equal, because you're not. You're a Black man. He is a rich white man. Are you equals? Is this the same experience for him as it is for you? So it's really interesting. So this is where at this point this conversation is where they bring out the fox, the desert fox. So Lestat tells Louis that he also is like, hey, FYI, you can read minds now. And Louis like, the fuck? Cool vampire trick you could have told me about like fucking 2 days ago. And he says, like, you got to break down basic human thought into 3 things. I want food, I want sex, I want to go home. Very much. That's about right. I mean, not hungry, I don't want to fuck. I'm like, you know what? I'd rather, I feel like I can sleep. I can sleep now. And so he kind of teaches him how to read minds, and it's cool. It's really cool. Vampires can't read each other's minds though. They cannot. We jumped 6 months. This is what I was wondering what happened, because he starts wearing these sunglasses because his eyes are all fucked now. He's got fucking Lestat eyes. So you've got new eyes, man. I mean, he had beautiful brown eyes before, and now he's got these like crazy vampire eyes. People are gonna be like, yeah, like especially his family's gonna be like, yeah, I recognize your eyes aren't the fucking same, douche. Like, also, you've been around for 6 months. You missed the birth of my kids. Well, actually, that was not yet, but that's still whatever. Okay, so he is working on this housing project with the alderman, John DiMaggio, and the guy, this like, I want to say zoning person, something. Hi, sir. That is coming to like ask, and figure out the zoning board is there. And he kind of gives Louis shit because for one, he's Black, and he's like, this is like the first thing he's building a building, like he's constructing a building. So, and he's giving him unduly shit because he's Black. And he calls him he's calling the N-word. He calls him a derivative of it. And it's still hard to hear it in this day and age. It's so hard to hear. And Louis does not take lightly to it. And rightly so, because he's like starting to feel very empowered. And what he says is, but I wasn't a man anymore. I was something else. I had powers now and decades of rage to process. And it was both random and unfortunate the man picked that night to dabble in fuckery. I love it. Oh my God. Fuck around and find out, bitch. Fuck around and find out, because he found the fuck out. Lestat is pissed as at this point. And he's the more level-headed of the two. I mean, he's also like, I don't know how many hundreds of years old, so made sense. Although he keeps calling him fledgling, and meaning his fledgling vampire. And Louis not taking kindly to that. He's like, I'm equating fledgling with slave, and I'm not appreciating it. Then we leads to one of the best scenes in the show. And I am not in this episode, I am not going to spoil it. Just imagine Ricky and Lucy. Just imagine that. Okay. So Lestat buys Louis one of the biggest clubs in NOLA, and we have a 5-year time jump. And we go to the future, and Dan says to Louis, like, pretty much like, what's, is this pandemic, like, is this something that's like the gateway for you guys to like to come into power? And he says that many vampires are hoping the pandemic and global reconstruction is the Great Awakening, or global instability is the Great Awakening. All the while, so a lot of other things happen, and Lestat realizes Louis is upset. At some point, he gets very upset in this episode, and he says, "I've been neglecting the romance," and so he takes him to the opera, and this is where Louis says, "Music is where Lestat separated man from food." But not necessarily, because something happens with one of the tenors from it. Reminded me of, I want to say that this is also in Hannibal, or yeah, I think it was in Hannibal's second book, or maybe they talk about it in they talk about it in Silence and Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter ate one of the symphony orchestra members for playing off key. Something similar happens here. And Louis is not happy about it. Like, he's just kind of like, I think he's starting to realize very quickly that, oh my God, this is my life now. But Lestat says that Louis takes away his loneliness and they must never part. And Louise says to Dan, like, Dan's kind of like, why the fuck did you stay? Like, he sounds like a fucking sociopath. And he says he had a way about him. And oh my God, is it like every fucking person, that's woman or man, mostly women, I mean, it happens more to women, that they get stuck in a fucking abusive relationship because there's just something about him that we just couldn't say no to. Like, it just keep coming back because he just had a way about him. Like, fucking, like, as how people can't get out of cults because, my God, they'll just sweet talk you back in. That's exactly this sort of thing. It's like, he's a spider. Like, he will talk you into whatever because he knows where to, he knows how to hit the sweet spot. He is the apex predator. I mean, that's what he's here. That's what he has honed for hundreds of years. And at the end of the episode, Louis and Dan are actually eating like food together. Like, the last course is dessert, and he actually is eating dessert. And Dan asks him, what does human food taste like to you? And he says, it tastes like soap or paste, but I try to at least eat one human meal a week, so to like keep that connection. Parts of this feels like his last memoir. Like, he's gonna walk out into the sun when this is done. Like, he's just done. Because he doesn't seem like, Louis does not seem happy. He seems like all joy has left him. I mean, you can imagine, like, after hundreds, well, for him it's not been hundreds, but it's been at least 100 and going on 150 years. And yeah, it just, Imagine that kind of like sucks. Kind of like it's boring at this point. Um, so that's the episode. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought there was like again, I am cutting out large swaths of stuff because I don't want to ruin it for people. And I also want to keep this short. So I'm gonna go through our ratings. First is blood and gore. This one was less gory, guys. I'm gonna say 1. There's some blood, not a lot. Uh, spooky, scary. 1. There's not a lot of spookiness. Sex and nudity. 1, 0. I mean, there's no. I mean, we had 3 last week. So there's 0. And entertainment. I think I put 3 last time, maybe 4. I'm gonna put 3.5. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was funny. I can see where they're gonna start getting pretty serious. I can't wait till they bring in the kid vampire, the Kirsten Dunst character. But we'll have to see. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, I would say please check it out, definitely. If you can get on AMC Plus or whatever, go for it. All right. Have a great evening, guys.